The legend of flying saucers has a long history, some even predating the invention of airplanes. However, with the development of technology, some scientists attempted to develop a butterfly-shaped aircraft under existing technical conditions to obtain a high-speed, high-flexibility flying equipment. The Avrocar was an early human-designed butterfly-shaped aircraft. However, the Avrocar was not originally intended to be designed as a disc shape, but rather was intended to be a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. In the 1950s, many countries around the world believed that the next war would overturn the pattern of World War II, and atomic weapons would be extensively used. Conventional airports would become the primary targets, and conventional runway takeoff aircraft would become obsolete. Therefore, the development of vertical takeoff and landing aircraft became very popular for a period of time. John Frost was an experienced designer who had worked in the UK and participated in the development of aircraft such as the Vampire. In 1947, he joined the Canadian Avro Company and shortly after began researching the Coanda effect-related technology. The so-called Coanda effect refers to the phenomenon where fluid or gas, when flowing over the surface of an object with small curvature, will adhere to the curved surface and deflect. This principle is now widely used in the flaps of aircraft. By deploying the flaps at specific times, the air flowing over the top of the wing will deflect downwards along the curved surface of the flaps, thereby increasing lift. Since the Coanda effect can be used by setting flaps on one surface, would it not be possible to create stable lift around the entire aircraft by designing all surfaces of the aircraft with curved shapes? With the support of Canada, John Frost initiated the Y project. He first improved the structure of the turbojet engine and developed a flat engine, on which he based the design and manufacture of a prototype. This flat-shaped aircraft had its engine nozzle installed in the belly, but the design work did not progress smoothly, and the aircraft was not practical. Shortly after, the second aircraft began to be designed. This time, John Frost applied the Coanda effect to the aircraft, designing it with a disc-shaped structure. The reason for this design was actually to better utilize the Coanda effect. When the aircraft was in operation, the compressor, driven by the engine installed in the middle of the disc-shaped aircraft, compressed a large amount of air, which was then discharged through the pipe set inside the body and around the periphery, creating lift for the aircraft. The aircraft's directional control was achieved by manipulating a large circular structure on the edge of the aircraft, which adjusted the angle of airflow in the edge area to convert part of the force into horizontal thrust. In 1953, the U.S. Air Force became aware of this project and provided $750,000 in funding 2 years later, while the Canadian Avro Company also followed suit with an investment of $2.5 million Canadian dollars. In 1957, this disc-shaped aircraft was renamed the WS-606A. The reason the U.S. was so interested in this research was partly due to the demand for vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, but it also included an exploration of the mysterious flying saucer. At that time, there were articles suggesting that those unidentified disc-shaped flying objects were actually the new technological achievements of adversaries, causing some panic. According to the designer's idea, the disc-shaped aircraft he developed could reach a flight altitude of 30,000 meters and a maximum flight speed of 3.5 Mach. Of course, we cannot know how the designer calculated these data, or whether he considered technical issues such as thermal barriers. The surface temperature of the aircraft sharply increases after exceeding a speed of 2.5 Mach. In any case, this so-called Avrocar disc-shaped aircraft did begin construction. After extensive wind tunnel testing and dangerous experiments, it was decided to build a small-scale aircraft in 1958. The first prototype, designated 58 to 7055, was completed in May 1959 and was required to hover for 10 minutes and carry a 1,000-pound payload for 25 miles. However, many issues were found during testing. Firstly, its lift was too small, and it could not take off like an aircraft, only floating like a hovercraft or ground effect aircraft. Also, due to issues such as air vortex, the engine would inhale exhaust, reducing its efficiency. The second prototype was completed 3 months later. It hovered relatively stably at the height of the ground effect, but would shake violently when attempting to ascend or move. Subsequent investigations indicated that at a reasonable height, the ground effect beneath the aircraft was stable. Once it ascended and disrupted this balance, the forces became unbalanced. The same issue occurred during forward movement. In short, this 3,000-pound Avrocar was not successful. Even after subsequent modifications, it was only capable of flying at a height of 1 meter above the ground at a speed of 56 kilometers per hour, not even as good as a ground effect aircraft. At the end of 1961, the US closed the related design, and although Avro Company persisted for a while, the military had no interest in this research that had no future, and it ended up being discontinued.